Welcome to Behind the Line, the podcast where you'll get untold stories from first responders and military veterans. I'm Tim Hegman. I'll be your host. Our guest today is Chief Mike Albanese. Chief Albanese has been serving the law enforcement profession for 51 years. He began his law enforcement career in 1971 with the Los Angeles Police Department, and after 37 years of service, retired in 2008. In 2010, he unretired, was hired as a captain with the Burbank Police Department. He eventually became the department's deputy chief, and in December of 2021 was appointed as their chief of police. It is my honor to introduce our guest, Chief Mike Albanese. Hi, Chief, and welcome to the Behind the Line podcast.
And thank you for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome. All the people that in law enforcement, you're still serving. Couldn't ask for anybody else besides you to be our first guest. So thank you.
Thank you. Very kind of you.
So 51 years. Nowadays, that's a rare, very rare feat for law enforcement.
So I don't know if I'd recommend it for everyone. The passion is still there, the interest. I still have great admiration for the folks that serve on a daily basis, and that's what drives me. And I believe I have the heart to serve, and that started back in 1971, and it still is going on.
Well, that's good. We need people in law enforcement like yourself who still, after all these years, have the passion to serve others. So thank you.
You got it.
We're going to get into your career in a little bit, but before we do, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, your family, where you grew up?
So grew up in the city of Los Angeles, born and raised, went to elementary school, junior high school, 2 universities, graduated from 2 colleges. My grandfather, who's going to have the greatest influence on my career decision, my mother's father, worked for LAPD from 1923 to the mid-40s, and then his brother, 1924 to 1950. So growing up, I grew up in a law enforcement family because at family gatherings, at Christmas, there would always be a police story. And I remember it being mesmerizing for me, and I knew at an early age that I wanted to go into law enforcement. Both of them worked LAPD. They were passionate about the organization. They were passionate about the city. And so for me, it was a no-brainer that once I get out of college and I'm old enough, that I would apply with LAPD. And that's what I did, and that started August 9th, 1971. My parents weren't really happy about it because my mom grew up in a law enforcement family. Her father was a homicide detective, and she vividly remembers the call-outs and being gone for 2 and 3 days. And she really, and also my father, really wanted me to pursue a different career. I prevailed, and I haven't looked back at all.
And here you are today.
Here I am today. Just kind of as a footnote, family-wise, I have three children, all adult, all in their respective careers and thriving. But there was some commonality growing up when I did, and paying attention to my grandfather. Our oldest daughter, and I didn't see it coming, and my wife didn't see it coming, was also fascinated with my career in law enforcement. And I remember we were hosting some SWAT folks that were from out of the area, from Alaska, Chicago, New Hampshire. And when we'd have these training sessions, my wife would always do a barbecue for these guys so they would have a home-cooked meal. And I remember seeing in the corner of my eye, my daughter would just be sitting there. And I'm thinking, what's that about? I mean, this is guy stuff.
Right.
This is SWAT stuff. And so fast forward, and we're at dinner one night, and she goes, "What do you think of the Beverly Hills Police Department?" And I go, "Yeah, great reputation, well-paid, well-staffed, well-equipped." She goes, "I'm thinking about applying." I go, "Have at it."
Right.
Because I'm believing then, at the time, Beverly Hills was primarily taking laterals. And certainly women, I did not realize women were on their radar, but they were doing a really aggressive campaign for recruiting women. She was recruited at the bank where she worked. She had a couple of Beverly Hills officers that encouraged her to apply. 21 years later, she is still with the Beverly Hills Police Department. She's a captain, and she is thriving.
Wow. So, obviously, proud dad.
Very proud. Proud of all three of the children, but the law enforcement nexus. So her husband's in law enforcement. My middle daughter, who's an educator, her husband's in law enforcement. I begged my son, I said, do something else. They're going to think we're a family of losers because we can only work civil service jobs. So he's an entrepreneur and thriving.
Wow. So the family get-togethers are full of stories, entertainment, and maybe there's some other grandkids or whoever around listening and may carry on that tradition of the family and be in law enforcement. You never know.
We believe that will be the case, but our Thanksgiving, Christmas dinners, it always circles back to some law enforcement related topic, incident. You can imagine how that is.
Yes.
So, my wife is weary of it because she knows where it's going to end up.
Yeah, she knows the MO and what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I get that. You mentioned your degrees. So what degrees do you hold, and what colleges did you graduate from?
So a bachelor from California State University, Los Angeles, commonly referred to as Cal State LA. So that's a criminal justice major. Then I went to graduate school there for a short period of time, then jumped over to USC, University of Southern California, and graduated with a degree in a master's of public administration with an emphasis on city management.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Very nice. All right. Kept it local at the USC.
I did.
Good deal. All right. So you talked about why what interested you in law enforcement and those mentors or those people you looked up to who helped guide you and maybe even encouraged you to do the law enforcement thing. And you mentioned LAPD. Did you ever think of another agency that you may go to, or was it just, I'm going to go to LAPD?
So I actually thought about the FBI. I was a clerk for the FBI in 1969 to 1970.
Okay.
So that was a full-time job while I was going to college at Cal State LA, and that was a strong interest. But at the time, the FBI really wanted folks that were either accountants or attorneys and or had military experience or other law enforcement experience. So if I had graduated in 71, or when I graduated in 71, I would not meet the baseline qualifications. So I thought, you know what, LAPD has been in our family for years. We'll go with LAPD. Let's see how that goes. I'll go to graduate school. Maybe I'll be a viable candidate for the Bureau. And in just to be very forthright, is that once I was onboarded with LAPD and was immersed in the organization, I was committed. I was all in on that.
Oh, good deal. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, LAPD is just, a pristine department, has been for many, many years, and what a great place to start your career and gain all that experience. Mm-hmm. So with that, while you're with LAPD, what were some of the assignments that you worked as a young officer and then as you progressed up through the ranks?
So for like most officers, you don't have a clue. You just want to get immersed into the organization and learn how to be a good, well-rounded police officer. I was fortunate. There was a couple of folks that I worked for, sergeants and lieutenants, that kind of nudged me around as far as you need to go to gangs. So I worked 77th gangs. I had great partners there. And then another nudge, you need to work Vice. So I did a tour, 77th Vice, had some wonderful partners there, wonderful supervision. And the supervisor that probably was the strongest influence at the time, there was a couple of them, is Jeff Rogers, who ultimately is going to be 10 David, and that's going to be the SWAT OIC. So when I refer to 10 David, that's like the SWAT commander.
Got it.
There's only one 10 David in the organization, and ultimately he's going to be a 10 David. So I worked for him in Vice. I actually worked for him in Patrol, and another supervisor I had who is just a great mentor and continues to be a friend today, and that's Mike Hillman. Mike Hillman has had an incredible career in law enforcement. He retired as a deputy chief from LAPD, a deputy chief from the Orange County Sheriff's, an assistant chief with the LA Port, and he's still working in law enforcement. So we still are connected and been just a tremendous influence on my professional career. But going back to Jeff Rogers had worked SWAT as a police officer and had worked SWAT as a sergeant, and ultimately he's going to be the 10 David, the SWAT OSC. And he would tell me, he said, there's only one job in this organization, and that's SWAT. I didn't even know what a SWAT was. I truly did not know.
Right.
But this was a guy that was just so passionate about the mission and managing crises that it was really a strong influence. As far as not pursuing the investigative process or other processes. So when I got timed out at Vice, did some time in narcotics, then I applied to Metro, which is the division that has different platoons, crime suppression platoons, and one of which is D Team or SWAT. And a short time later, so late 70s, I applied to SWAT, became one of the members in D Team.
Okay.
I'll finalize the career. So D Team, then I promote to sergeant, then I go back to D Team, then I promote to lieutenant, then I go back to D Team. So there's a common theme there.
Yes.
So when I retired in '08, I was convinced that I would never work again until I got a phone call, and this was going to be a 6-month contract, and it's been 13 plus years.
Right. Yeah. I get it. I get it. Yeah. Things happen that way.
Yeah.
They get you and then they have you.
Yeah.
So I understand. You don't recall this, but I certainly do. So many years ago, when I was a young sergeant, I was a supervisor at our department's crisis negotiation team. And way back when, or maybe around 2008 or something like that, I went to a training class, and you were one of 2 instructors. And it was just fascinating, your stories and the way you instructed and your passion. And with that, you have, as you just said, with your career, you have over 27 years related to SWAT and crisis negotiations. And you talk about how you started with that. And obviously, it's a great career and a lot of incidents, a lot of stories. But out of your entire career, but specific to SWAT, what was, or what are, what's 1 or 2 or 3 incidents, notorious incidents that stand out? How did you get involved in that with the SWAT negotiations? And what was just the background of those calls?
So just a quick background on the SWAT CNT model. So when I talk about CNT, it's the Crisis Negotiation Team. So with LAPD and a lot of the West Coast teams will have their negotiators embedded in their SWAT team. So it's a collateral duty.
Yeah.
So you could be a SWAT team member, collateral duty of a negotiator, a sniper, an EMT. So in late 70s, I went to the basic 40-hour CNT training that LAPD hosted. Actually, it was Hillman and Dr. Adeline that provided that training. And it's the best training that I've ever had, because it was a skill set that I learned that I use every single day.
Right. Every
single day. And so the training and incidents, what was appealing is that on one call-up, you could be on the entry team or on the perimeter, and then the next call-up that you're the primary or the secondary negotiator, which means that you're talking to the subject. And this is where lives are actually in the balance, and what you say really matters. So there's 3 cases that I'll highlight, and one not that many folks are familiar with, but they should be. And it occurred August 2nd, 1983, and it was called the Medical Clinic. And it was, at the time, an abortion clinic that was well known in the area, in the Mid-Wilshire area. And you had a male that had breached the building in the early morning hours, and when some of the employees started arriving at work, he ended up taking 2 as hostages. So this hostage-taking incident lasted 14 hours, and I was assigned to be the primary negotiator with the suspect, and this incident exercised every aspect of our resources and our personnel. And Sergeant Ron McCarthy, who is another mentor of mine, was essentially the SWAT incident commander, because our captain, Jeff Rogers, were in Europe looking at other counter-terrorist units in preparation for the Olympics. So really have just a sergeant driving a significant operation, and he is depending on his people to really step up their game.
Sure.
So the suspect was provocative in the sense that he, during the negotiation process, he was talking about how his former girlfriend had an abortion at the clinic, and he was there to be the avenging angel of what happened to his girlfriend. So if you were on the outside looking in, you would believe that the pursuit or his intentions were to reconcile the abortion that his girlfriend had. And that absolutely wasn't the case. He ultimately is going to reveal himself, and he is a career criminal who is from Texas, and he had we didn't know this at the time, but had been implicated in 3 of the murders. And the dialogue with him was exhausting, and he was testing us all the time. And the other thing that he would do is just a behavior we'd never seen before. When he wanted food delivery, so folks that are in the SWAT CNT world know that's a big deal, is that how do you get the food to the door? Who's going to get the food? Who's going to pay for the food? And how can we get it to them safely? And we're going to negotiate the type of food and all of that. But before the food was delivered at the back door, he had tied off the back door, and we see a mirror on some sticks, tongue depressors that was taped up, and it was like a corner mirror. So anybody that has worked SWAT or in the tactical side of things know how critical those mirrors are. So Bomar is using this mirror, and he's kind of looking, and then at the corner of the building, we have our guys with their mirror, and the mirrors are looking at each other. So that really put us on high alert as far as the sophistication of this suspect. So not only sophistication, but this was someone who was really committed. So fast forward through a pretty arduous CNT process, and from the onset, he was demanding a vehicle. So understand this is 1983. The CNT process is still new to us in law enforcement. So it's only 7-8 years. The SWAT model is still new to us. So you have a food delivery, you have a hostage-taking incident, this is a stranger event, and now he wants a car. So we had never done a vehicle delivery before. We had never done a hostage rescue from a vehicle. We had trained in that. We had trained in all of these scenarios, but never in real life where lives were truly in the balance. So in the background, when we're on the CNT side of things, just kind of a footnote, there was a psychologist that was attached to our CNT team, and he heard something that clearly I missed, because all of a sudden he jumps up and runs out of the CNT area there. I'm thinking, what the heck is that all about? Well, he speaks to Ron McCarthy and said, okay, this is going to be a bad outcome. This is serious stuff. Someone's going to die. Okay. So I don't have a clue. So I'm still introducing words, affirming him, trying to encourage him to surrender. In the meantime, the doctor, our psychologist, is telling McCarthy is that we're going to have a gun battle here. Probably better off not knowing that, but because just kept driving till even the last words that I had with him is still, giving him hope as far as surrendering. So fast forward, a car is acquired. You have a team of SWAT officers exercising a hostage rescue from a vehicle. We're using technology that we've never used before, and one of it is an END device, END device, electronic neutralizing device that you put on the car, and that it's activated with a radio so the car's on, and then you can shut off the car, and the car won't start or move. When they were testing it, it only worked 50% of the time. The other thing is that we had sniper positions up, believing that if he came out, that sniper shot would stop the incident.
Right. Yep.
When the car is delivered, he was very specific, the suspect, that he wanted the lights on, doors open, hood, the trunk open, because he wanted to make sure no one was inside there. And before the suspect and hostages exit the hospital, there is a weird sound that we hear, and it was a fire extinguisher. And the suspect had shot or used the fire extinguisher and shot it at the car, and essentially made a cloud over the car. So it was really eerie. It was almost Twilight Zone-ish, because you have this car in the middle of summer evening, and then there's a cloud on this car. In addition to that, when the three suspects, or when the three people come out, suspect and two hostages, they were all dressed like. They had hospital gowns on, they had hospital mask on, and hospital caps on. So as far as target identification, no one knew. The other thing is that he had the hostages tethered. So when they got in the car, the in device was activated. The sniper team was off. It was my partner. He said, I have no target identification. So he's out. And we have the rescue team that starts moving up, and they can't tell the suspect from the female hostages. They can't tell. So they're poised. The suspect recognizes that the car stopped, and he's yelling at the driver. He's in the center. Start the car. Let me help you stop the car. He must sense that something is behind him, and he takes the gun and turns around and points to the back of the car. And then we had target identification. And then there ends up being a shooting. They shoot the suspect. They rescue the hostages. But when they go to rescue the hostages, now imagine this, that you're part of the hostage handler team, and you're kneeling down at the car door, and rounds are going over your head, and it's rescue, and you grab a hostage from each of the respective sides, and they go to pull them, and they're tethered together, and their necks went about like this, and someone said, cut the rope, and actually it was electrical cord, and they were rescued. So at the time, context is 1983. I get it. No cell phones, no video, no nothing. But this was a big deal for our organization. To our knowledge, it was the first time it was a successful hostage rescue from a vehicle, exercised flashbangs, exercised all sorts of stuff that we had never done before. So that's an incident that I look back on, and especially McCarthy, and the folks that were involved, and especially the folks that were close to a threat and were in absolute peril, with hostages that were in peril, and prevailed.
Can I ask a quick question on that?
Sure.
So with the suspect there, obviously he put a lot of thought into it, or maybe beforehand, or he just thought as he went along. Did he have any military background?
So we all had those questions, and actually that's a great question. What was his history? What did he have extraordinary training? And here's the bottom line. He was a career criminal that for the most part had been successful. And there were two other murders. This is post-incident, and this is where the investigators do the heavy lifting and the investigative legwork, where it was a similar MO, that he went into a business when it was closed, waited for employees arrived, and ended up murdering two folks there. And it was all about money and drugs. So no family, had been in prison in Texas and California. A young guy. If you saw him walking down the street, this is Manhattan Beach, you'd say that's a surfer dude. He had blonde hair. He looked like a surfer. Yeah. But just a pretty vile human being.
It goes to show that you guys have never done this before, but you'd practiced, and it goes to practice, because it may never happen, but in this case, you're being prepared, studying, and practicing beforehand paid off, and it was a real life event that you were able to be successful at.
Yeah, and you cannot train enough,
Right?
And create scenarios that you'll say will never happen because they will happen, because I'm going to segue into a scenario that I said that would never happen. And it's also equipment. And in the event that vehicle rescue didn't work, then what? And if that tactic didn't work, then what? Because if he gets out of the parking lot and he's northbound on the 405, then what? So to your point, training, the acquisition of equipment, knowing how the equipment works, having good team members where everyone is working together, understands the mission, is mission driven.
Yes.
So let me segue to O.J. Simpson.
Okay.
So at that moment in time in my life, I was convinced post incident that I had seen everything in law enforcement. There's nothing more to see because you could not have scripted what occurred that Friday. I think it was June 17th, 1994. And as you recall, this is Simpson. It was a handshake with the detectives and the attorneys, is that he was going to surrender himself at LAPD headquarters at noon. D-Team was working later detail that afternoon. I was at home, I had it on TV, because I was just curious, like everybody else in the nation, is that how that's going to look. Plus, Metro was back there. They were going to be part of the receiving team when he surrendered, and it didn't happen. Thought it was odd, but, waited, figured, at some point in time it's going to happen. Well, at 1:30, that's when Deputy Chief David Gascon declared O.J. Simpson a fugitive from justice, and that's when everything changed. We did a pre-watch workout back at the office. I'm a sergeant at the time. We have the TV on because we're curious, just like everybody else,
Sure.
how this is going to end. And I'm telling you, is that none of us expected that we would have a critical role as far as taking him into custody, especially when they had the sightings in Orange County. So for folks that are not from California, Orange County is a considerable distance from the city of Los Angeles. And then if you go to the west side, that's even a greater distance. So we have the TV on, we have the sighting, and then they have the following and all the madness associated with that, and the people on the freeway over ramps with signage.
Right.
It was insane. And we're sitting in the office and we're being hypercritical of the folks that are involved in it because they're not doing their job. And they're not doing their job because they're being told not to do their job. Oh. And they said, let it go back to Los Angeles. That's their problem.
Wow. Okay.
And then we get the phone call, and it's an abrupt phone call. It says, hey, go to Rockingham and take him into custody. It's like, you're freaking kidding me.
Right.
Could we need to get any more clues? And so it was a different type of mission. And for the folks on the tactical side, I think they will understand this, is that we worked from the inside out on this one. Our negotiating team was going to ultimately be in the inside of the residence, and Simpson's going to drive up in the Bronco and going to be on the outside. So things were reversed. It was just odd, because when we got on scene there, none of us expected the volume of folks and media rigs that were up and down the street. I mean, these were international media rigs with the big satellite dishes. I mean, we had a tough time finding a place to park. The crowd started growing there, and we're all just shaking our head. This is madness. So when we get on scene there's Simpson's family. Part of the family is inside eating. Went in, introduced myself, and said, "Look, you're going to have to leave because something's going to happen."
Right.
So they're annoyed. So we get rid of them. We have folks being placed on the perimeter. We have our snipers, because we don't know what's going to happen. This is what we know. Fugitive from justice, implicated in 2 murders, believed to be armed. So I would put this in the very high-risk category, coupled with the fact that it's going to be televised. So we're setting up the perimeter. I have the negotiating team. I have a primary, a secondary negotiator that is going to dialogue with Simpson if that happens. We don't know if he's just going to drive in the driveway, get out of the car, surrender, and be done with it. And so we're looking at all the contingencies. We have folks in ghillie suits so that they would blend into the vegetation in the event that there's some type of violence. In the background, there's just something that I just can't let go. There's 2 dogs. There's 2 big dogs that are just sitting on the driveway. And guys would run by, and they'd be talking to a partner or this and that, and they'd be petting the dogs. It's just natural, just petting the talking to the dogs, because the dogs were the coolest feature of that whole thing. They were calm. They were enjoying all of it, and they were enjoying the attention.
Yes.
Sergeant comes up to me, one of my peers. He goes, "Oh my God, we got dogs there. We need to OC them." I go, "Don't." They're the only ones that are calm right now. So in the background, you have to look for them, but you're going to have 2 big dogs just lying there during all of this stuff. Just oblivious to...
Not bothered at all.
Not bothered at all. Oblivious to the crisis that is unfolding. So we're inside. We're trying to ping Simpson up. We have cell phones. This is 1994 technology, not 2022 technology. So we're in, out. In fact, it's probably a flip phone. And we're in and out trying to establish a dialogue and a relationship with him. And then all of a sudden we can hear them because red lights and sirens. There's police cars from certainly LAPD, CHP, departments in Orange County, to include a Santa Ana canine unit whose dog was losing its mind over all of this. And they pull into the driveway. So we're standing at the door. So I got Pete Wyreader and Gregory Wells, primary, secondary negotiator, and I'm standing right next to him. And then to my right in the hallway is a television. It was just odd that a television would be there and be on. So it was very surreal. So you have the Bronco right in front of us, and then you have the television. So we're watching it live. But the epiphany for me is that everybody's watching this.
Right.
And everybody, this is 1994, so this is after the riots, and there are people betting on us that we're going to do something wrong. And a great negotiating unit, coupled with our tactical folks that have discipline, because when he came in to the driveway, he's in the back seat, he had the barrel of his weapon under his chin, just like this.
Wow.
Just like this. And so is this going to be suicide by cop? He's just going to self-inflict? Is this going to be theater? But we are going to introduce words to encourage a surrender. So I believe it's either 46 or 56 minutes of dialogue. Wyreader and Wells do just a great job encouraging him to surrender. And the progress of the negotiation process, the indicators, one, the gun went away. So that was a really good sign. But then what he was doing, he had photos of his family, his wife and the kids, and he had them cradled in his arms like this. And they had like a chrome frame, so it was bright, shiny object.
Right.
So bright, shiny objects in the law enforcement world is serious stuff. So get the snipers going, okay, what's in his hands? We see something that's shiny. Does he still have the weapon? What is his hands and arms? And we could see it. It was clear. So that ongoing communication is that, look, he's got framed photos. In fact, before he exits, we ask him to hold them up so that everyone can see, so we don't have a misstep. And ultimately, he is going to exit. He gets out of the vehicle and kind of just a few steps, falls into our arms. We put him in the living room there, and it's over. And just some interesting facts. We got hammered by some folks as far as that he got special treatment. He got to talk to his mother. We let him go to the bathroom. And it's just absolute nonsense. I mean, we had a call up the week before where the condition of surrendering is that, look, I just want to talk to my mom. Can I talk to my mom? And we're going to facilitate that.
Sure.
And that was one of the negotiating elements here, is that he goes, hey, I want to talk to my mom. So we can make that happen. And what I want to tell him is that we do this all the time. This is our wheelhouse. We know how to do this. So when he came in, we get him on the couch, and he was beat up. He said, look, I'm sorry. The gun wasn't for you. It was for me. Kept apologizing. So there was no threat to anybody, and all the gun and everything else was in the car. And he said, I really need to go to the bathroom. So is this like a command decision here?
Right.
No, this is pretty simple. So 2 SWAT guys are going to have on their epitaph is that they watch O.J. Simpson take a leak.
Right.
So that, and then he came back and he goes, can I talk to my mom? So I phoned up his mom. It made an introduction, handed off the phone, what you would expect. Hey, I'm here, I'm fine, I'm safe, I'm sorry. That was it. So the only humorous part was, he said, can I have something to drink? So, sure. So I looked at one of my guys, I know exactly who it is. I said, hey, just make it happen. So he goes in there, and he's in there for a while getting a drink. And I'm thinking, what's going on? So he comes back, and he has a glass, and he goes, OJ? OJ. Simpson, it's not going to resonate with him.
Right.
But for the rest of us, we had the big eye roll. So then it was a handoff to the detectives, and the detectives took him downtown. It was a circus atmosphere out there. I'd never seen anything like that before. Folks, especially with the signage, and I asked myself, do they understand the significance of the allegations?
Right.
So, and then his storyboard goes into another dimension, if you will. So any comments on that before I jump to North Hollywood?
Yeah, so just real quick, it just goes back to the communication between the negotiators, whoever's on scene,
Right.
to communicate what they're seeing with the snipers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the snipers don't know. They just see a shiny object, think, oh, it's a knife, it's a gun. There's somebody else in the car.
Sure. What's
going to happen? But for the negotiators to be able to communicate, we can see what it is. It's not a threat. Is very important. So that communication is critical.
Right. So it's ongoing communication. So the also the update on the phone, off the phone. We're doing voice to voice, maybe back on the phone, and give updates as far as progress of negotiations. A big point for me is always if a subject is kind of intimating or even thinking about surrendering, I want the perimeter folks to know,
Right.
because it may be abrupt, because we've seen, and you've seen it, where all of a sudden they make it say, I'm coming out now.
Right.
And we can't say, no, we're not quite ready yet for you.
Right.
Is that coming out? And we're going to facilitate that and make it as seamless as possible. So there was constant updates as far as the progress of the negotiations, the discussion about he was thinking about surrendering, how that looks, who's the custodial team, and all of that was coordinated. Again, this was a very different setting for us, where our roles were reversed, or this as far as being on the inside and taking them into custody versus them coming out to us, surrendering, and taking them into custody. But it worked, and I give high marks to everyone who was associated with that call-up as far as the discipline, understanding the dynamic, kind of sort of believing that we were being videotaped, and that was viewed live by 95 million people.
Sure. Yeah.
So if we, LAPD, has a misstep, we're going to get excoriated. And this is coming after Rodney King and the riots. And for us, it was a proud moment in the sense as far as how we managed the incident. We managed ourselves well, and we managed the incident well. Everybody can provide the commentary they want, but we were in the moment, and we done good on that one.
Yeah, really did fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. What about the North Hollywood?
So the North Hollywood. So this is going to be. Let me see if I get my dates right here. February 28th, 1997. So the backstory to that is that actually Metro and the FBI and RHD, so Robbery Homicide Division, and the FBI had been looking at these bank robbers for a year. And there was, they had committed some other crimes. They had gotten a lot of money. Suspects were dressed up in military type clothing to include body armor. It appeared that they had headsets on. It appeared that they had some type of extraordinary training, that they were good with their time management, and they were very violent. So there was one murder. There was almost 740,000 this year. You're going to have to fact check my money on numbers on that. As far as armored car robbery and bank robberies, the suspects were partial to B of A's. Don't know why. Speculation is that they knew when the money would be delivered, and they would coordinate the robbery after a money delivery, because on a couple of them they talked about the money was just delivered, give us the money.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
So, but really violent. They would go in and they would just start spraying rounds, terrorize the bank employees, terrorize the patrons, and pretty scary stuff. So there was a task force, and the investigative task force identified 14 banks in the San Fernando Valley that they believed were high risk. And in, I think it was June, the June prior, is we spent like 3 days full-time, LAPD with all their resources as far as Metro RHD and FBI, and they split the San Fernando Valley in half. 405 freeway, west of the 405 freeway we had, east of the 405 freeway the FBI had. So we had teams set up on the banks. They were going to let them commit the robbery and then take them away. And if they bed down, then we were just going to treat it as a call-up, because we did not want to put hostages at risk. So the logistics associated with that, because there was rental cars, there was all the tactical vehicles and tactical sport vehicles, airships, the investigative folks, it was the planning and preparation for that was significant. So our little role was in the event robbery. We'll let them go. The airship will take it. There will be no vehicles following, and wherever they land, then we'll set up on it. So it was one of the response team associated with that. Never happened. Never happened, and literally we forgot about it until that February morning. And I had got up to the police academy just getting ready to work out, and Donnie Anderson is the one that's going to be driving the black and white that's going to engage Emil Mazzarano. Rolls up and just getting ready for a run. He said, Bank of America, it's on. Those guys are there and they're popping off rounds. And I go, great. I said, let's grab, it was Gomez, Massa, Y-Reader, myself, and Donnie. Let's just go. My former partner, he's never forgiven me for this. He's coming up, Steve Steer, I apologize. Steve, start driving the academy, start picking up guys, and send them to North Hollywood. So, good soldier, Vietnam vet, American veteran. He gets in his car, starts picking up folks. So there's going to be like a 12, 13-minute delay of getting the rest of the troops there. So the five that I mentioned, Anderson, Gomez, Massa, Wilder, and myself, in trail go to the B of A in North Hollywood. So driving distance probably going to be 11 or 12 miles, freeway driving from the police academy by Dodger Stadium to North Hollywood. And I will share this with you. It was the most terrifying ride that I've ever been in, because I was the last car and Donnie Anderson was driving like a madman. And but when we get there, all we can hear is gunfire. We can just hear it. We don't have a landmark yet, so we know we're close. The sounds. So this is how I would describe it: is that if you go to a SWAT shooting training day at the range,
right,
then you close your eyes and hear all those rounds going off. Okay, now open your eyes and you're in a bank and you're in your community in North Hollywood. That's how it sounded.
Wow.
And barking out orders. I told Donnie, I said, just get eyes on the bank. Just call out what we need, because we know we got folks coming. And really what we're looking at, just get one sniper up and we're going to be fine. So those folks are coming. So it was Donnie Anderson, Steve Gomez, Rick Massa get into a car because they're getting eyes on the bank. Wire Reader is going to start a rescue effort because we had no idea. We're being told that there are people down everywhere, and how we're going to coordinate the rescue effort, provide life-saving measures, all of that, because we don't know. And I'm trying to look for the incident commander to let them know, hey, we're here, we're deploying resources. So understand, when you see our folks there, is that we're going to assume this mission. Never saw him the whole day. Never connected up with them.
Wow.
I had the SWAT radio, I had the Metro radio, I had the North Hollywood radio, and I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm walking up towards the bank. My boss is en route from home in Huntington Beach, and I know these resources are coming, but how long this is going to go, and the disadvantage that we have is you have people watching it live on TV,
right?
And again, opining of what should be done. Well, why aren't the snipers there? Why aren't they there? Well, because we're just getting there,
right?
And we don't have eyes on the location. So then Donnie gets me on the radio and says, we see one of the suspects. So if you watch the video of it, is that when they leave the parking lot, they're going to separate. The two suspects, Larry Phillips and the Mil Serrano, are going to separate. One in the vehicle, one's walking behind him. So there's this ongoing gun battle with Phillips, who ultimately self-inflicts, and then Mazzarano continues down Archwood or whatever the street was, and that's who Donnie Anderson and Steve Gomez, Rick Massa, they see him because now he's stopped and he's trying to commandeer another car, but they have officers who are on the perimeter waving to him going, he's there. So when Donnie sees him, he just goes full throttle. He drives directly into the V of where what Donnie did was took away this guy's ability to shoot at him. Instead of being wide, he went directly at him. And if you watch a Mazzarano with his weapon, one, you have Gomez is coming out of the car and popping off rounds, and you can see in Mazzarano's face, and I'm writing my own narrative here, is that, okay, we got a sea change here. Something changed. Well, these are rifles now. These aren't 9mm.
Right.
This is a rifle. And then I got a madman driving right at me. And so he brings up his weapon and he starts spraying that black and white. So the test question I always ask folks, how many rounds did the Donnie's black and white take?
120.
Not one round.
Oh, really?
Missed everything. Missed
wow.
everything. Missed
Wow.
everything. And if you watch Mazzarano, he's just, there's no front sights. He's just using it just okay, don't, there's a lot more rounds coming at you, so don't come my way. And Gomez, Donnie, and Rick, when they stop, then they engage Mazzarano, and I believe he's really confused right now because when he's not expecting that type of offensive behavior and just a direct effort to stop his deadly behavior.
Right.
And it was Massa, and you really probably need to interview those folks. It was Massa who can't get a sight picture on the guy because he's behind the car. So he goes to ground. So he's lying on the ground behind a tire, and then he sees part of a leg, and he's able to start tagging his leg. And every time that he's hit is that it starts turning Mazzarano around, and then they have a greater sight picture and are able to disable him.
Right.
So the number of rounds they fired were effective, and that stopped that incident. So let's go to postscript. So this is after the movie Heat.
Right.
Okay, so
right.
there's there's some similarities in these two suspects were enamored with the movie Heat. They had a room in there wherever they were staying at, and they had videos of action videos, if you will, and one of them was Heat, and I think it was in the VCR the day of.
Wow.
So that changed. That incident changed American law enforcement, because for the most part, is that the notion of police officers carrying rifles was unheard of, unnecessary. Why would a police officer need rifle? And that incident showed everyone how we were just absolutely outgunned.
Definitely.
And then the next sea change is going to be Columbine. Columbine, when you had that siege, the belief was that only SWAT can go in and stop the behavior,
Right.
and that stopped everything, and that changed. And then you look at all of these other just horrible and tragic incidents. Every time there is going to be a change, whether it's Virginia Tech, Aurora, Sandy Hook, Uvalde, it just goes on, is that for law enforcement, the expectation is that we will intervene immediately and stop the threat.
Right.
We do it well, and at times we don't do it so well.
Yeah. Getting back to the part of the Hollywood shootout where Donnie comes up to the car and they engage, and the officer starts shooting the suspect's leg. We all saw it on TV, which is incredible. Very close. Do you know how close they actually were? And if you don't, it's okay.
I don't. I don't. They would be good to interview, because that was an event, a law enforcement event that just confounded many.
Right.
So once that suspect was secured, I ended up in the bank with the team there to secure the bank, and the victims were just they couldn't speak. The trauma was so great. They were just standing. They were literally like zombies, or like The Walking Dead. If you need a real life picture, for the first 20 or 30 minutes afterwards, because of what they saw, heard, and even inside, as far as the number of rounds that they let go, and the behavior inside, and then in the parking lot. So you're inside your bank, just lying on the ground, hoping to God that none of the rounds hit you.
Right.
And you have this gun battle that just goes on for a period of time. So, again, I thought I had seen everything.
Well, and those are all, you've had this 51-year plus career,
right?
And those are only 3 incidents that you've been involved in. You mentioned, but you were involved in obviously, so many.
Right.
Some well-known, some just not. And that's just how law enforcement is. A lot of great work by law enforcement officers is done consistently and daily, and we just don't know about it. It's those ones that are on the news, but there's so many things going behind the scenes. But even with those 3 incidents, and through your whole career, is there one moment that stands out that is most, and it could be one of these 3, but something that is most memorable?
Well, there's a number of them, even some with humor. We're negotiating with the suspect in a hospital, and it was one of our negotiators that was just kept grinding, and the guy goes, "Stop, please stop. Can I surrender? I don't want to listen to you anymore." So you're going to have humorous moments.
Sure.
A very one that is traumatic for me was the death of Randy Simmons and that incident, and I shared with you maybe another time we can go into that incident. But there's so many of them. I tried to do the math on the call-ups. So I was involved in that in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So either from a command and control, a supervisor, or an officer, probably close to 2,000 call-ups.
Wow.
And probably more high-risk warrant services. But if you were to ask me, and I'll give you the question, high-risk warrant service, SWAT call-up, where did you have the most anxiousness? It would be the warrant services, because those were unknowns. Unknowns in the sense that typically the subjects involved were armed, had weapons, had criminal history, they had behavioral issues. Some of them had nothing to lose. And especially when I was the SWAT commander, 10 David, I was more anxious at warrant services because I knew how fragile that process was. And if it got away from us, then it's going to be a bad outcome. At SWAT incidents, when our folks got there, I was so confident in their skill sets and their professionalism that I was always in a good place. And in fact, I remember standing at the corner, walk and don't walk, and rounds are popping off all over the place by the suspect, and to hear our folks on the radio, very measured, popping off some rounds, come from the attic window, and that's what you want. And the tempo, as far as managing yourself, are essential. In fact, the one where this guy's popping off rounds, there was a gal that was a small child, 8-10 years old, and she's on a cell phone. This is like 2 a.m, and she's by the command post. Well, she was part of the family there, and I go, "Sure, who are you talking to?" "My uncle." "That's the shooter."
Oh, jeez.
So I said, "Let me introduce you to some folks," and and that was a negotiated outcome. And after it was fraught with violence and a negotiated outcome. So if you get a group of SWAT guys here and they start stories begets other stories and stories. I remember with the Alaska SWAT team is that they would have animal interference. They were at a call-up, and they had problems with deploying tear gas because it was so cold. And then a polar bear rolled in, and they had to navigate. And I was fascinated by their stories. And, of course, they wanted to hear our stories.
Right.
But we didn't have to navigate weather. We didn't have to navigate polar bears. And you had a moose on the perimeter if you're a sniper guy. So there's a boatload of stories.
Right.
A boatload, case study. Let's call them case studies.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Got it. What about, do you have, and if, does one, like, immediately, out of all these years, even as a young officer, your most memorable arrest?
Nothing stands out because there were so many.
Right.
I'll tell you what is memorable, and this is really odd, is my first 5150. So this is like in 1972, and we take this gal into custody, and who clearly had mental health issues, and no one knew what to do. And it may have been 73, 74, whatever. So we were told, go to Parker Center, which was a police building, go to the bottom, go to the basement, room 150, 151. There's a guy there that essentially is going to do the evaluation. And so this is where I'm going to have an epiphany as far as mental health, addiction, and SWAT incidents, where they're all going to come together. So we go to this guy, and so you got 2 young police officers that have no idea what they're doing, other than they know that something's not right. They know something's not right and what can be done so that there's a good outcome for the subject. So we're talking to the guy, and again, I didn't even know what a 5150. That's a mental health hold, an involuntary mental health hold for your folks out of state. We didn't even know what a 5150 was, and I said, "We're going to put him on a hold. You're going to take her to the hospital, and then you're going to just drop her off and go." So that's exactly what we did. Drop her off and left. Then I'm thinking, okay, and then what? So what happens to her? Is there follow-up resources? Is there going to be case management? So this is in the early 70s. Law enforcement was unsophisticated when it came to that process. And then fast forward to when I go to CNT school and we talk about folks that have mental health underpinnings, mental health disorders, addiction, and involved in crises. And then you fast forward to where we're at today, is that where we take a hard look as far as how we manage these incidents. Is this driven by mental health? Is it driven by addiction? Is it driven by emotion? Is it driven by crime, just evil? Or is it a combination of everything?
Right.
Or those elements, and how are you going to manage it moving forward? And there was a time, at call-ups I would ask, is he going to jail or going to a hospital? Depending on the behavior, especially if there's suicidal ideations, they're demonstrative as far as weapons and all that. So the way that we manage and look at incidents now, it's a more clinical approach. We have psychologists attached to their team. We have mental health clinicians attached to our team, so that if there's a mental health component, is that even if there's a criminal component, we'll take crime, but post-incident, make sure that person is getting resources, right, so we don't see him again. I do remember one incident. We had a guy that was a subject of a SWAT call-up four times, and he literally just kicked our ass, and he was a jumper. And when he would get into a funk or he needed food, he would go to the top of a building. This is all downtown within like a three block area. I think the last name was Williams. And he would just go to the top of the building and just stand there. Didn't have to phone anybody. They would phone for him. So we get out there, first call, we're talking to him. I think it was Art Williams, going back and forth. And he goes, look, I'll come down if I can get a Subway sandwich and a pair of tennis shoes. Not a problem.
Right.
Come down. A month later, same thing. Different request. On the fourth time, so don't share this with anybody. On the fourth time, I get a call at 2 a.m, and it's him. Get it from Central, and then we have a jumper. And I go, stop. Let me describe him to you. So I start describing. He goes, how did you? You're really good. How do you know that? I said, right. This is what I want you to do. Okay, I'm since retired. I said, you go up to him, say, Mr. Williams, Albanese said, if you don't surrender, is that he's going to come out and he's going to push you off the building. and he goes, no, I can't say it. I said, verbatim, and I'll tell you what the outcome was. And going to be, and he surrendered. And we never saw him again.
Wow. Okay.
Never saw him again. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
it worked.
It worked, but I don't recommend that.
No. Nowadays, you probably you could not get away with that.
Yeah. And that guy, the third time he wanted a bus to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Not only did we get the bus for him, we provided him a police escort to the Greyhound station, gave the bus driver food money for the guy, believing, okay, that'll be the last time.
He's gone.
And number 4, no bueno.
It didn't work out.
No, it didn't.
Oh, the fourth one worked out. The third one.
Yeah. Third one didn't. He came back.
Yes. Well, this has been fascinating. I mean, honestly, your time to be here today and the stories.
Case studies. They're case studies. They're not stories.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Case studies have been fascinating. And, people are going to learn from this, watch it, and be fascinated. And, with all your years of service, the things you've done for, LAPD, for Burbank as their chief, just law enforcement in general. And it's not just in LA County, obviously, throughout the state and around the nation. And obviously, outside the United States, you've been an influence to so many people. And just your knowledge, your expertise, goes a long way. So I really do appreciate you spending time with us today.
So understand this, that I just didn't fall out of a closet. I had some folks that came behind me and helped me out. So the Ron McCarthy's of the world, Hillman, Jeff Rogers, and the position I have right now, a lot of gratitude to Chief Scott LaChosse, because I never thought I would become a bureaucrat. In fact, I am today what I've had disdain for the first 40 years of my career, and that is bureaucrats.
Yes.
So I am one now, and I actually enjoy being a chief. I got a great department. My folks are great. I'm in a good place. But thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome. And let me just backtrack just real quick, because you brought that up with your staff now. So with Burbank, what is the best part of being the chief of police to represent the Burbank Police Department?
So a couple things. One is that you have the police department, you have the community. This is the first time in my law enforcement career that I've been immersed into a community. I know community members. In my former life, that just wasn't the case because we served the whole city.
Right.
So I'm on some boards there, service groups, people email, and I phone them. I give them a personal response. And for me, it's a CNT operation every day.
Yeah.
And a community that supports their police department, that supports the law enforcement mission, but they have high expectations. They want concierge service, and we're going to deliver that service for them. So I'm in a great place. I have a really, really good department. It's very young. We've onboarded probably 90 folks since we've been there since 2010. So we've acquired the latest technology, make sure they have training opportunities, define the expectations, and they see me around the station, and they see me at roll call, and they'll see me at a call if necessary. And I know everyone by their first name, and I'm in a really good place.
Well, that's, you know what, I know you know this, but to have the chief there, know your first name, be around the troops goes a long way. So
you know who I learned that from?
Who's that?
Daryl Francis Gates. Daryl Francis Gates. He was remarkable when it came to his officers. In fact, there was a moment, and I know we're wrapping up here, where my daughter, Liz, I think it was his book signing. So she introduced herself and said, "You're not going to know my dad." And she goes, "Who is it?" She goes, "Albanese, Mike Albanese, and blah blah blah." She came back beaming,
right?
And it's important, but it's important that you know your folks and having babies, kids. I mean, look at in law enforcement, we're your neighbors. We went to the same schools you did. We go to your churches. We're your coaches. We're like everyone else.
That's right.
And it's important that that we're all connected.
Yes. Very well said.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like the show, please follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For the show notes from each episode, visit behindthelinepod.com. If you want to support the show and hear more from our first responders and military veterans, head over to patreon.com/behindtheline. I'll see you on the next one.